If you're ready for freedom from the grind, then passive income from real estate investing is the best way to get you there. If you don't know where to start or what to do next, then the Rent Roll Radio Show is the best place to get you there. Join us while we discuss the best practices, strategies, and mindset you'll need and give you actionable content to get you from where you are to where you want to be. Hey, Rent Roll Radio listeners, welcome to the show. As always, I'm your host, Sterling Chapman. Today, we're joined by David Sanford. So David has a pretty robust real estate background, and I'm super excited that we were able to connect and looking forward to hearing his story. So David, can you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, definitely. Sterling, I just want to first say, of course, I appreciate being on the show. It's great. I've been listening to your podcast a lot lately and got some really cool guests. I'm kind of honored to kind of join that list there. But thanks a lot. So so I've been in real estate since about 2015. I got my first rental. It was actually a house that my wife and I owned, and we were moving into a bigger house, and we just decided to rent that house out. It was like around the same time I read like Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And so it was just the timing just worked out. So we rented that house out in 2015. 2016, we were like, this is pretty cool to make that cash flow. So we started saving up some capital, bought our second rental property, which is actually like our first true property, like investment property, because the first one was just a house we already owned. And then, we were like, this is pretty cool. So we kept saving up our money and buying more houses. And then, it was a slow growth. It probably took us about until like 2018. I probably only had like 8 houses just because, it was difficult to save enough capital. I hadn't quite learned like the power of using other people's capital and leverage that way. Yeah. So it just took us a while to kind of grow. But 2018.
I mean, a lot of people would say 8 houses in 2 years is not slow at all. It's so funny because I look back at like the goals I wrote down when I first started, and I wanted to buy like 2 houses the first year, and then was like hoping to buy 3 the next year. You know what I mean? It was like you. Yeah. I didn't realize like, oh wait, there's a cheat code here, and you can actually buy like 50.
Yeah, exactly. That's funny. I wish I had written down like my goals. I just started that recently actually. So, but it would be so cool to be able to look back to like my 2016, 2017 goals and just kind of see like I was really limiting myself.
Yeah. But it's so true. So I started doing it in 2014. I started writing down my goals.
Wow, that's cool.
And then in the beginning of 2020, I started writing them down every day. So I've written down my goals every day for the last, or whatever that math works out to. I filled up several of the little leather-bound journals, just writing them over and over. And it's impactful, and you're right. And when you reflect back on it, it's very self-limiting, but you like give yourself credit for it. You know what I mean? And like, and if I kind of like do it out. So I like, all right, these are my 3-month goals. These are my 1-year goals, and this is my 3-year goals. Right?
That's so smart.
And a lot of times you like fall ridiculously short on your 3-month goals, but then you look at like your 3-year goals when you reflect backwards, and you like 10x'd it. So it's
you crushed it. Yeah.
There's a quote out there about like people severely overestimate what they can accomplish in a year, but underestimate what they can accomplish in 10 years. That kind of
thing. Yeah, I've heard that before. I'm actually like I'm probably not going to do anything with it, but I'm writing a book right now. Just kind of, I think it'd be kind of cool to give to my kids or, my family, just kind of so they can see the story. But one of the chapters there, I'm talking exactly like you said, people so underestimate what they can do over a couple of years. But yeah, it's like, 3-6 month goals. Like it's just like you said, it's really, people really overestimate what they can do in short term, but underestimate what they can do in long term. So that's key.
So tell us a little bit about, because you said you have 50 rental properties now, 50 rental houses.
Yes, right around there. I don't, it's right around like 50 to 55 range. Yeah.
People always laugh when they ask me, because I'm like, I don't know, So how did you in the beginning, what was your strategy before you like kind of, I'm assuming you eventually like evolved into like the Burr method and started using private money to buy and just flip it over and over again. That's how you built the majority of them. But like those in the early days,
you're in the military, so I would imagine you started with the VA loan on your primary residence. And then what was the next play? Like what did your financing options look like when you started buying investment properties for property 2, 3, 4, and 5?
Yeah. So actually, when I bought my first house, I wasn't eligible for the VA loan yet because I'm active duty in the National Guard now. But back then, I was just in the National Guard, and you have to serve for so many years before you actually earn the VA loan, or you have to have so much active duty period, which I didn't have at that point. So our first house was actually a short sale. Um, so that was, just your generic. I think we put like 5% down or something like that. The second house though was the VA loan. By that point, I had earned it, so I'd used the VA loan for that one. But then, like I said, we got our first true rental property. And that was just your standard 20% down loan. So we would save up. I think our first house we paid $90,000 for it. Found it on Zillow. It cash flowed great, which, in today's market, it's kind of hard to find those kind of deals on the MLS. But yeah, I think we paid like $90,000 for that house. So we had to put down the $18,000. I put in maybe another $8,000 just in like some flooring and paint. But yeah, and we just kept doing that. We kept saving up till we had 20%. Like, I remember asking my wife, like, hey, how little can I have in the bank? Like, how much can I spend over that amount? And at the time, she was like, well, let's just keep like 5,000. And now I'm like, that was so dangerous. Like, only keeping a $5,000. Anything over that, I would spend on real estate. But it worked out. I wouldn't suggest anybody kind of risk it like that.
All's well that ends well.
Yeah. So yeah, it was just our first couple loans. We would save up 20%, put it down, and then I think it was around like house like 6 or 7 or so that my lender taught us like the cash out refinance, which I didn't even know that was a thing up until that point. So once he introduced that to us, I think we cashed out like the very first rental that we bought, and we were able to pull out the 18,000 we put down, but we were also able to pull out like an extra like 12,000 just because of depreciation and everything. So then we were able to take that money to buy 2 more houses. And we just kind of went that way with the 20% down loans.
And where are you located? Where do you live?
I live in Central Virginia, Richmond. Most of my portfolio is right around like the Richmond surrounding cities in Virginia. And then I've also recently just started buying out towards like Virginia Tech out in like Roanoke, Blacksburg type area.
Awesome. So what do your rental properties look like from a numbers perspective? Like what do they rent for? What is your financing cost? How do you underwrite like this is going to be a good rental property? And then in hindsight, has it worked out the way that it did initially in your spreadsheet?
Well, so generally when I look at a deal, like the first thing I look at, so I raise capital now, I don't use my own money. So I try to keep my all-in costs at 70% of what the house will be worth. I think that's a pretty common formula. And it's just, I think that's a safe formula to use because I know like my lender will do 75%. I've got one lender, he'll do 80% of, the value of the house. So I kind of build in that buffer in case like you're seeing right now, houses I bought 3 or 4 months ago, they're not quite worth what they were. Yeah. So I'm just very like thankful that I'm buying at 70% because so that way I have like a buffer there in case the market does kind of take a dip or something like that. But it goes to refinance the property and pay it off. But so that's probably the first metric I look at is just to make sure it's 70% all in. I used to focus heavily on like the 1% rule for the rent rate. I wanted it to be 1% of my all in cost. Now it's a little bit more difficult to find that recently. I found. Because I buy primarily from wholesalers. So,
yeah.
I'm not getting like the steep discounts that if I were to do like my own marketing, I could get. But
so same. I've never done my own marketing. I've always thought about it. I've just never gotten around to it. I bought everything I've ever bought from wholesalers. So what about, and I think, I'm with you there on the 70%. What about the cash flow metric, right? So like, do you look at like, all right, well, X is my rent, X is my mortgage, X is my insurance and taxes, and then we'll take out X for, vacancy and repair, and then you've got $200 left. So like, do you look at that, or is your portfolio just self-sufficient, or is it like kicking off a tremendous amount of extra cash flow? Like, talk to us about those numbers.
Yeah, so it's as if you're reading my notes here, but yeah, so exactly. So I look at the principal, interest, tax, and insurance. The pity, the key four right there, and whatever that is. Usually, I add $400 to it. So I find out, I've got like a little online calculator where I can type in, the purchase price, the interest rate, the how many years the loan is going to be, and it'll tell me how much the payment will be. So usually I add $400 to it, and if I can rent it for that, I'll go to like Zillow to see what the rental estimate is, or Rentometer.
So you
just all these.
You add $400 to the principal, interest, taxes, and insurance.
Yep.
And so,
And that.
What's your logic in that $400? Is it that how much of that $400 do you feel like is going to be gobbled up by like a vacancy repair type of?
Yeah, on average, I'm probably pocketing 150 of that 400 because so much goes to like property management, vacancy expenses, CapEx, things like that. So that's kind of why I do that 400 metric, because I know like 8% of the rent's going to the property manager. I know it's probably gonna be vacant. Well, hopefully I don't have turnover like that, but at least a month, a year or so. So that 400 kind of builds in that buffer. So it's not, across the portfolio, it's not producing like a ton of income, ton of cash flow, but I'm positive on everything. So it's kind of more like the long-term wealth game at this point.
Yeah, that's same. So like people see how many rentals I have, and they're like, "Oh, well, you can just go sit on the beach." And I'm like, "Well, it doesn't not quite yet." You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't really work that way. Like it's all self-sufficient. It's all paying for it, but there's just so many other costs. I mean,
yes,
it's great that I have them, right? They're building long-term wealth. They're appreciating. They're paying down debt. Like that's all cool. But the cash flow that we're actually seeing, and you know what? I always tell people that that are in, and I guess you've been doing it about the same amount of time as me. Fast forward 10 years, what's going to happen is our fixed rate debt is going to stay where it is today, but the rents are going to be way up here. So that spread's going to grow.
Yeah, over time. Yeah, especially these past 12 to 18 months. Like the amount of rent I can get for a house. Like my property manager emailed me yesterday. She's like, "Hey, I just want to let you know we filled this unit at $1,050." Which when I bought the house initially, I was, the rent was $750. I was happy.
Right.
Yeah, so it's went up $300.
So did you always have a property manager?
No. So now I'm full time in the military. So when I started buying properties, I was self managing up until I got to like 8 houses, 10 houses, maybe somewhere around there.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Army decided that I should change my job. So they kind of directed me. It's called a command direct, where they kind of force you to take a new job. So they did that. And I was like, I do not want to do this new job as a recruiter. It's a military recruiter is probably one of the hardest jobs in the military. But so once they said I was going to become a recruiter, I was like, well, I know it's going to take a ton of my time because recruiting is difficult, especially like in this day and age. Like it's hard. So I knew like I would have to hire out property management. And then at the same time, I was like, I'm going to really scale my portfolio so that way I can leave my military and I won't have to recruit. So at the same time, I outsourced property management, scaled the portfolio, and then I love recruiting now. So it was like a win-win.
So completely non-real estate related, but I'm just curious, why is recruiting more difficult in this day and age?
I wish I knew. I think, where I'm located at, they're not, it's just the political environment, of like the surrounding areas. Yeah, they're not extremely pro-military in this area. So it's a little bit tougher. And then, I don't really see it a lot, but, a lot of people think that like it's just the millennials, like they're not looking to serve, like the prior generations. And I mean, we're still finding decent numbers, but it's just, it's harder to find people.
It's just a complete different mindset about nationalism and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. I was just curious. I mean, you can see it. You can see it watching the news. It's no surprise. I was just curious from your perspective, from being on the streets, trying to do the recruiting. So what's next for you? What's your next play going to be?
Yeah, so I think now I'm at a point, and I've known this, probably for a year or more so, that I need to like start scaling. I'm doing great at single families. I've got some duplexes, but not a true multifamily property. About a year ago or so, I invested in like a coaching mentor education program to learn the multifamily side.
Whose program,
Um,
if you don't mind?
it's through the military, it's through active duty passive income.
Oh yeah,
Um,
I know all those guys. So Eric
oh, cool.
Upchurch is a good friend of mine.
Yeah.
And I know Tim as well, and just interviewed somebody else from over there. So
Oh, very cool.
always been a big fan of all those guys.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they're amazing. I mean, it's just the amount of information that they'll give, and I felt like for the education platform that they were providing, like at the price point that they were providing, it was like it's a no brainer. I can try to go learn all this stuff on my own through YouTube and books and podcasts and blogs and all this, or just pay for the program and learn it a lot faster.
Yeah.
So yeah,
So
that was really cool.
when you say commercial property, are you looking like multifamily? I think a lot of those guys these days are kind of in like the mobile home park space and the self storage space, and I want to
Yeah.
say some of them are in the RV park space. What
Mhm.
what avenue were you looking to go?
So I was thinking what feels natural to me is to just move into like multifamily, apartment complexes. But, I'm not, I looked at a property yesterday. It's a medical building, a doctor's office. So it's going to cash flow great. The price point they're asking is kind of like what I'm trying to figure out what's the catch.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think, and this one was kind of just like, my broker was off market thing, so he was like, hey, like with the returns that you're looking for, we're having a hard time finding an apartment deal, a multifamily deal. So would you consider like a medical building? So that's how that one kind of came about.
And so, how are you planning on structuring these projects? Are you using your own money as a down payment? Are you leaning more into the capital raising side of why?
Yeah, more on the capital raising side. Of course, I'm going to put some of my own skin in the game. Just, I think that's kind of necessary, especially with me just starting out in the multifamily space. I should also put some cash in the game. But yeah, primarily just raising funds. So, I've, in the past couple of weeks, I'm starting to get a little bit more active on Instagram and Twitter, LinkedIn, and just starting to kind of grow my network out that way.
Awesome. And how is that going? Are you getting the traction that you would have hoped to at this point?
No, I probably need to hire a marketing team. I probably need to hire somebody to help me out here because I'm not big on social media. So like,
Yeah.
The quality that I'm posting is pretty. You can tell I don't have a marketing team, and then I'm kind of doing this all myself. But it has worked out. I've probably raised, like I said, I've been on posting, on social media for about 45 days or so, and I've got close to like 300,000 that I've raised so far.
Nice.
So,
so what I find and ultimately what we'd like to do right with the social media and with Active Campaign and with our websites and is we would like to create this fly trap that attracts people from across the country and just drives people to our site and signs up for our drip, our lead magnet and nurture them with their drip campaign. And then we're just churning in investors from all over. And I've spent all that money and I've got a marketing director and we you see me posting all the time, but
yeah,
I don't know that I've ever had an investor like go through that process. Like, I don't know that I've ever gotten like a cold investor. What it has done is it has given me an extreme amount of credibility with my natural market and the referrals that they go. So like, what I've gotten since I've started doing that, I've gotten a lot more investors, but it's not from like there. It's not like some random guy in Pittsburgh like sees my lead magnet. I need to download that. And what happens is like my cousin's realtor's brother sends me like his cousin, and then he hops on crestwoodcapital.com and goes, oh, this guy looks legit. You know what I mean? Or they check out my Instagram and go, oh wow, look at all this content he's provided. So like it's weird. All the activity is it's definitely working and growing my investor base, but like not in its intended function.
Yeah, not the avenue that you thought. Yeah. I mean, I was talking to a friend the other day, and it's like I said, I'm new to social media, so posting is just kind of like I'm still in an awkward stage where I'm like nobody wants to see my face. They don't want to hear me talk. So I haven't quite gotten over that. But I was talking to them. I'm like, well, it's
what held me back for a long time was because I've got, and I mean, You can look at these real estate guys that I've got 900 friends in common with that I've met at the, the conferences and stuff. And you're afraid to say something stupid in front of them. But reality is they're all trying to do the same shit you're trying to do. So it doesn't really matter what you say in front of them.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Your friends and family and friends and families, friends and family and friends, all those people that don't know anything about real estate, you know way more than them. You are an expert because you have built a 50 house rental portfolio and you've done that training from active duty passive income. And those two qualifications alone mean that you know more about real estate investing than like 99% of the general public. So if you just share the stuff that you learn, you know what I mean? Like I had to intentionally go, like force myself to go backwards. So like I wanted to like get on and make shorts about like, how a waterfall IRR is structured. And like it was going over people's head, you know what I mean? So I had to really go backwards and like, okay, if you're going to buy a rental property, like this is how you calculate the cash flow, you know what I mean? And really kind of go back. So you'd be surprised at how much value you can add. And all of the hundreds of reels and videos I've put out, the ones that went viral, I say viral, they didn't really go viral, but the ones that got like a lot more attention were those like basic entry level ones. Like these are the 4 good reasons to invest in real estate, cash flow, appreciate, you know what I mean? Those are the ones that are like, calculating net operating income. Like nobody even looks at that stuff.
Yeah.
And it's the same phenomenon with guests. So more people will download this episode than downloaded the Brandon Turner episode. I promise. And I don't know why. I do know why. It's because you're relatable, right? Because so many of our listeners are like right a step behind where you are. And we're talking about how you took those first steps. Like when I interviewed Brandon Turner, it was like, well, this is how I'm going to go from 100 million in real estate to 500 million in real estate. And they're like, okay, well, that has nothing to do with me,
Yeah. Yeah. I think, I think I might have actually been your podcast. Somebody was like, yeah, I'm looking at a podcast and it says like so-and-so's got 1,500 doors. Like, I'm not listening to that. I'm not ready for that. I'm going to this guy built 10 houses. Was it you? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
so
cool.
It was about Gino Barbara. I remember when I first started. Yeah. When I first started investing, after I bought like my first house, I was like about to buy my second or something, or trying to figure out how to buy my third. And I was running a lot. And so I would listen to Bigger Pockets and it would just kind of like go down the list, and like next episode would play because I'd be going on these long, like 3-hour runs, and I would just let them play back to back. And it would and I remember like Gino Barbara's one pulled up and it was like, this is how I bought 1,500 apartment units. And I'm like, dude, Skip, like that's
I'm trying to buy my fourth.
Yeah. It's so unrelatable to me,
Yeah. Yeah. It is really cool and motivating to listen to those, but at the same time, it's like, maybe it's one of those self-limiting things, it's like, that's kind of just a pipe dream right now. Like I need to focus on like what's achievable, but yeah, it's funny. I remember listening to that. I was like, yes, definitely. I feel that.
But it is a self-limiting thing. So because, and the more you get around the people, you more, and this is not a knock on anybody, but like you have this thing in your mind where you're like, oh, well, they're better than me. They're smarter than me. They're, more connected than me. And then you go and you meet them in person. Like, dude, I've met multimillionaires at real estate meetups that can't tie their shoes. And I'm just like, if this dude can do it, or like the guy, I've met people that have, 2,000 units that know less about real estate than you. And it just, you know what I mean? And so when you really go to meet a lot of the folks that have been successful in the arena, it helps to kind of like deflect that self-limiting belief. And you see like, oh, and I'm not knocking everybody. Like a lot of them are real smart guys or real sharp guys, but they're just like you and me. You know what I mean? There's it's not like there's some kind of like, oh, I'll never achieve that. He's some super special dude. They're not. They're just people that were committed to taking daily action,
Yeah, I went to an event last week. It was like a 3-day event here in Richmond. And one of the speakers there had 800 rental properties, right in my market, so it's really cool to see like this guy is he's me. He's just another one of us. He's in my area. Like, he's from here. He's just a little bit ahead of me in the portfolio. Like, if he can do it, like, yeah, why can I not do this? So yeah,
So
I could definitely.
tell me about the house flips. How's the house flipping going?
Yeah, so I'm not really flipping too many at the moment, just because of the uncertainty of the market. I generally flip like 2 a year, not because I'm more into like the long term game. Cash now is definitely cool, but I'm more into the long term, it's the rentals.
Yeah.
But yeah, I usually flip like 2 a year, and I use that income just or the profits just to kind of help pay like the property tax and insurance, a little bit of overhead that I have.
Yeah.
So that way I'm kind of cash flowing a little bit more each month since the flips are paying for the tax and insurance. But yeah, I just signed a contract last week on a house that I'm going to flip with somebody. So it was really cool. Like, this girl's a go-getter. I did like every single day for 30 days. I did like a live video just talking real estate. And I noticed like over the course of like a week or two, she was like liking these videos, like a couple videos a day. And then I was like she's really like every day diving into these videos. And then yeah, it was like 2 weeks later, I noticed she had like pretty much liked every single video. And then she shot me a DM and was like, hey, would you be comfortable partnering on something? Because she's overseas, she's not local. So I was like, yeah, if you find the deal and, maybe find some capital, we'll partner on a deal, and I'll kind of walk you through the process. So, and she did that. I mean, within a week, she found a solid deal. She had the capital raised, and she was like, hey, let's flip this. So this is actually like the first flip that I've done in a little while.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I am flipping too many houses right now.
Too many.
Too many because of the market uncertainty. I feel that. But like what I found was, I'm like you. I never identified as a flipper. I never wanted to be a flipper. I mean, there's a reason that the podcast is called The Rent Roll Radio Show. Like, I bought all those rental properties before I ever flipped the house. But I found that, like, when I started doing apartment complexes, those are 5-year business plans, and you shoot $100,000 out the door every time you do it. To co-invest with your investors, you run out of money pretty quick. And from burying the properties, I just found myself in a place where I have the infrastructure in place to like get the deal flow and have the workers. So we just decided to flip a bunch this year.
Yeah.
Whether that was a good idea or not, TBD. I'll let you know in about 3 months.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I know like with the, are you doing syndications mainly?
I do syndications, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So like that payout, like, yeah, you're making cash flow now, but the real money is like on the exit, right?
Well, and we do what's called a European waterfall. So we're very, like, on the front end, we're very investor friendly, like limited partner friendly. And then we don't collect, or we don't get into our pref until into our promote until we've paid the cumulative pref. So
okay, yeah.
So it's very delayed on our end. And like we get a small acquisition fee, but honestly, like what we end up investing is like probably 5x what the acquisition fee is. So I mean, each deal I'll walk away in a worse cash position, in real time.
Yeah, but wealth wise and down the road, it'll definitely pay out
for sure. So what would you tell David if you could talk to him, back in 2016 when he started? Any advice from hindsight?
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, so I initially started just using my own capital, saving up and buying the houses. And I remember I was at a school for the military, and I couldn't really leave where I was, but I had my phone and my computer in my room. So every day I was just like watching YouTube videos, and that's when I found Bigger Pockets. And that's when I also found about the power of like using other people's money and raising capital. And this was, probably 3 years into my real estate journey. And that's when I was like, I figured it out. Like, this is how I'm going to scale. Yeah. I remember like I went home and I told my wife after I had graduated the class, and I told my wife, I was like, hey, I figured it out. Like, I'm just going to find money and buy stuff and do the Burr method and, explain it to that. She's like, that's really cool. But who do you know that has money? I'm like, I don't know yet, but I'm going to find them. But yeah, so if I were to go back to 2015, David, where I first started out, I would just say like partner up, that's, I think I heard something recently. It's like 50% of nothing. I mean, of something is better than 0% of nothing.
Well, I mean, 30% of a watermelon is way more than 100% of a grape. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a very good point. So I would just say, like, just partner up, start raising capital, whether you have deals or not. Like, just go ahead and start getting some capital, in line. So that way, as soon as you do find the deal, you can move on it. You can use your own money, but the scalability, and like, you're really going to limit yourself once you start using your own cash for deals.
Yeah, for sure. So I want to hop over to our radio rounds to help our listeners get to know you a little bit better. It's just 3 quick questions. So the first one is, what's your favorite book?
So recently, I think the book that made like the largest impact on my business is, as real estate investors, we're always raising capital. We're always paying for maintenance issues. We've got money going to mortgages, to tax, insurance, contractors. We're raising capital. Capital's coming in. We're flipping houses. We're doing cash outs. I mean, so the money is always just in, out, in, out, and out. So I remember, like, I couldn't tell you how many times I've told my wife, like, I have no idea how much money we're making. I don't know. I know we got this money in the account, but I honestly couldn't tell you, like, how much is the investors and how much is mine. And that's a disaster. Like that.
Sure.
That's not a good recipe. So I came across a book by David Richter. It's Profit First for Real Estate Investors.
I just read it.
Oh, cool. Yeah. And that book was just like, the light bulb went off. Like, I immediately went to my bank and I set up like 5 different bank accounts. I'm like, all right, this account is other people's money. It's not mine. This account is profits. This account's for mortgages. This is maintenance, and set up all those accounts. So I think that book really like gave me like the clearest vision of like how my business is actually performing versus looking at tax returns or just taking a stab in the dark at it.
Yeah. Cool, man. And how long have you implemented that system?
Let's see, this is probably, actually, I read the book on a flight over to France. It was really cool. And that was for D-Day. I went to Normandy for D-Day. So that was back in June. So roughly 3 months ago, I'd say.
Awesome. I'm glad to hear that positive feedback. What's your favorite quote?
So it's a pretty popular quote, Henry Ford. It's whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. And I think that's just a very powerful quote. It's a lot of this, the first thing in the Active Duty Passive Income, the education that I went through, the very first thing they talked about was just mindset. And I think for all, whether you're buying single family apartment complexes, storage units, whatever it is, like you have to be in the right mindset to know that you absolutely can do this. That's definitely my favorite quote there.
Yeah. It's like 90% of all of it.
Yeah.
So what's your favorite thing to do when you're not working?
So I've got 3 kids. I've got a 5-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 7-month-old.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, I would say my favorite thing is just hanging out with them and just watching them grow and playing with them.
Awesome. So how can our listeners get in touch with you and learn more about you and follow you and invest with you?
Yeah, so like I said, early in the podcast, like I'm just kind of recently getting into Instagram and Twitter and LinkedIn. So you can find me on LinkedIn, Instagram at David Sanford 215, same as Twitter. But yeah, I would love to connect. I'm always talking to new people, and just kind of, even if you have a question, if you just want to talk to somebody that's done some deals, like, feel free to reach out.
Awesome. Well, David, I really enjoyed getting to know you today, and definitely looking forward to keeping up with you on your journey. And, we just closed on an asset in Virginia. So the next time I'm
cool.
that way, I will definitely reach out and see if we can get connected.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Congrats on that.
Awesome. Thanks, David. Have a good one.
You too, sir.
This episode was brought to you by Crestworth Capital. If you're a busy professional and ready to make passive income from real estate investing, then go to crestworthcapital.com, where you'll be able to download a free copy of our ebook to help you get started today. Until next week, happy investing.